back to the Curious Investor podcast. My name is Paulino Marquez.
My name is Philip Costa.
Yeah, and this is a Curious Investor where we interview people in the real estate and personal finance community, trying to learn from them and their expertise. And today we have a special episode with Ronny Tiburcio from Freedom Home Buyers. Is that the right one?
Yep.
All right,
you got it.
And so I learned about Ronny through Phil. Ronny is someone who, from what I learned, is someone who left the typical 9-to-5 life to pursue a dream that he had. And he actually took the leap that many people are afraid to take. So if you don't mind introducing yourself to the audience, Ronny.
Yeah, definitely. So once again, my name is Ronny Tiburcio. I'm currently a partner with Freedom Home Buyers, but definitely started like most people in real estate, working a 9-to-5. I worked for the city, for the Department of Transportation, actually. I thought once I landed that, I made it. You know, like people say, like, you know, you got the pension, you know, you work for the city, you're never going to get fired, which is true. You will never get fired if you don't want to get fired. You can get away with anything. But, yeah, so I started the same way as everyone else. I was lucky enough that one day, cousin of mine casually was like, hey, do you want to learn how to make money? And I was like, yeah, why not? And read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't think I've ever read a book before that. Now I read nonstop, which is crazy. And yeah, learned about bigger pockets, and that just like, it just changed the trajectory of my life. So very grateful. And yeah, now I'm here, full all in on real estate. There's no hedge at this point for me. I hedge with other real estate avenues, but I'm all in.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's actually something that me and Phil are. I know Phil has started. Phil has bought his first home, so he has already started that process. I'm currently in the analysis paralysis section, and we were talking before about how like you were in the same boat. How was it, and what was it that made you take the leap? Like, what was it specifically, and how did it feel? How did it affect your life?
Yeah, no, for sure. I guess the premise, what I'm going to say, my parents are from the Dominican Republic, and, you know, they came from there. You know, I was born here. But I guess to say that is the expectations of, you know, parents coming in from another country. My dad came when he was like 25. He just wanted to like survive. So the expectations were, I guess, manageable for my parents. Like, it was just like, just get a pension, just be safe, right? They come from a world of like, there's nothing really safe. So I guess I always had that in my back pocket, right? Like, worst case, you know, like I grew up in Washington Heights. Like, I knew that, you know, like I can jump and do a bunch of things, but like most people's worst case is like going to like a small apartment, like, you know, in a rough neighborhood. I'm like, oh, I like, you know, now that I'm older, I'm like, oh, that's where I grew up. Like, to other people, it's rough. To me, it's like, oh, that's, you know, that's where I grew up. Like, so I always had that, by the way, just the premise. I lost the question.
No, it's like you made the leap that a lot of people are scared to do. Like, what was the emotion attached? How did it affect your life?
Yeah. So I guess I feel like everyone gets the same feelings. Analysis paralysis. Most people are gonna, you know, most logical people for sure are definitely gonna get that, right? Because you're trying to hedge on, you know, what if this happens? What if this happens? So that's all normal. I think the number one thing that helped me was being around like-minded people. And, you know, the bigger pockets and the first 100 episodes, Brandon Turner would preach, like, if you don't have a meetup or you don't go, like, there's not a meetup around, you just start your own. And I didn't do it right away, of course, but after a while, I was just like, I can't find a meetup. I was like, you know, screw it. I'm going to start a meetup. If no one shows up, like, whatever, I don't care. So, at the time I wanted a house hack in Staten Island. Cause it seemed like where I was around my like backyard, there was just no way to buy a property. Like, so I was like, all right, Staten Island is like the closest thing where I'm still close to my job. Started a meetup in Staten Island, and 2 people showed up. Never forget, because I was terrified. And this one, John, he's a good friend now, but he came with a Bigger Pockets book. And like just a sense of like relief, like this guy, it was a bar. We met at a bar. I'm like, this guy's got to be here for the meetup. So I'm like, at least one person showed up. And it was so crazy because it felt like he was relieved too. because he was where I was at. Like, wow, I can finally like not bombard like my girlfriend or whoever, like with all this thing they don't care about. I got someone I can just talk to about. So it was the best experience. I also had a buddy of mine, Ryan, who's founded Freedom Home Buyers, which I'm part of now. He showed up too, and it was cool. Like he showed up when he was working for a school, and he just left. Like he cold turkey. He just quit his job. He was like, I'm going all in too. So it was cool. Like I was in the analysis paralysis stage, and I met someone who was also there. But then I also met someone who just took the leap, like maybe like 2 weeks ago, before coming to this meetup. So it was cool to see. Like I'm like, oh, this guy's just like me. Like maybe a little ballsier for sure, right? Because he's like he did it. But those meetups of meeting these people, and then randomly, I don't know if you guys are Bigger Pockets fans, but like Darren Sager once just showed up. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but he's pretty popular in Bigger Pockets. He buys a lot in Jersey, but he just randomly pulled in. This is a guy that's pretty well established. And I'm like, what is he doing here? So I got to then speak to him one-on-one. So like, after that, you're starting to see, and it's like random people that do really well, some people that are starting out, and you're like, wow, like I can't believe I have access to this, like all these people. So once you're around that, I think with that, and it's just like analyzing a property every day to a point where like you just know these numbers. At some point, that's when I just feel like you just got to make the jump. I don't know if there's like a aha moment. I think it's just a collection of things, and then you just have to jump. Like there's no other way around it after a while.
And when you say make the jump, what was that jump for you? Was that finding your first property? Was that partnering with the Freedom Home Buyers? What was that?
The first step was house hacking. And I think that's I recommend this to any single person that wants to get into real estate. Just house hack. It's pretty safe. In this market, it sucks because everything's so inflated that it's hard to house hack. But a couple of years ago, it wasn't hard, even in Jersey, to just find a property that can probably hit the 1% rule and live in one unit and then rent out the other one. So you're learning how to manage a property. You're learning how to manage tenants. You're learning about the tax advantages that real estate offers. You're learning how a transaction looks like from beginning to close. All of that while it being your house where at least half the rent is going to get paid, right, by you.
Right.
So
yeah.
It doesn't get better than that.
Ronny, if you don't mind, like for someone who's listening that might not know what house hacking is, could you like briefly explain what that is and like how did you, like what was the process when you first did it? Like what any challenges, anything that came through when you first did it?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I'll start with just what house hacking is. So house hacking is just simply when it depends on the area. There's no, I guess, correct formula. It's area dependent. So house hacking is just a way to purchase a house where you're living in it for at least 1 year with the idea that it's not your home. It's just a property that you're going to take advantage of owner-occupied financing, right? So it's a lower buy-in, but then eventually the intention is to turn this into a full investment. So in my situation, I took a two-family that I found in New Jersey. I paid $400,000 for it, and the first thing that it hits was the 1% rule. So I knew that I needed to have a total of 6 bedrooms in the area I'm in of Broadway, because I know that I can probably get $2,000 per unit, which just like rough numbers, you hit the 1% rule. Mm-hmm. So that was my criteria. So when I was house hacking, for some people can house hack and not come out of pocket at all. That wasn't my house hacking. I still had to consider myself a tenant and pay market rent. Mm-hmm. For some people, like I said, it's area dependent. Some people might be able to house hack like a 4-family and live for free. I couldn't find that where I was at. If you can find that in Jersey, where I'm at, like Central Jersey, like tip of the cap, good luck. If you're not burying that, which we can talk about too, it's hard to find. But that's how I started. That's what I did.
Yeah. Okay. So then, so you got that deal, and then immediately after, did you? I'm just trying to wrap my head around when was the time that you took the leap and went full time? Was that after you met your partners and then you took the leap, or was it after that first property?
So let me see. So yeah, so I started house hacking, and then Ryan and Michael, which are two of the partners of Freedom at the time, we didn't even plan it. They just so happened to be doing a burr in Rahway as well, where I'm from. So naturally, like aside from the meetup, now like I found like-minded individuals that are doing something pretty cool. So I just found myself like looking for them more and more. So like they had a little office. So I would just be like, hey, what are you guys doing? I didn't have any intentions at all at the time. I was just like, it was just cool to have guys that just talk as much real estate as I do. My intentions originally were just to continue, like just house hack until like my girlfriend is just fed up with me, or until the banks are like enough, and then like figure it out from there. But keep my 9 to 5. Like those were my original intentions. And then I started meeting these two guys, and they started like introducing me to the idea of like freedom, freedom from like freedom from not being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it. So not necessarily being free of not having to work. I still do have to produce. I don't make enough passive income to retire, but free to do whatever I want whenever I want. And so I was like, what are you guys talking about? Like, so they introduced me to that idea. Like, yeah, like you don't have to wait till you're 60 to do what you want. I was like, what are you guys talking about? And they're like, yeah, like with real estate, we can do what we want now, still make enough income as long as we live, below our means for a little bit, but like we're free. And I was like, I couldn't comprehend what they were saying. I'm like, no, but you have to work. They were like, no, you don't. Not the way you're thinking about it.
It goes against society. It goes against culture. It goes against growing up with immigrant parents, like we all did in this podcast right now. We all grew up. It goes like, I don't know if like that. That's just it doesn't sound right to me even now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it took a while for them. I'm sure they saw something in me because, right, like, why would they continue to talk to me? I'm sure they were, like, planning to see, like, this guy. Like, I didn't know at the time. But I'm like, no, how do you do that? And then, like, they started, I was already in, like, just reading mode. I was reading. I've never read as much books as, like, I haven't, since 2016, I don't think I've ever not been reading a book. So, like, then I was like, what are you guys reading? And then, they'll hit me with a couple of books here and there. And I'm like, oh, like Traction I read. I'm like, oh, so they're forming a business. I'm like, okay. So I was like, I see what you're doing. And then they, I don't know if you guys ever taken the DIS test.
Yeah, I haven't, but I've heard of it a lot.
You guys should.
I should. So I've been thinking about
it. It just tells you your strength. It's like you get like how like players have their cards with their stats and everything.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a player card for you. So they gave me that. They were like, "Ronny, take that. See what that is." And I was like, "What's this for?" They were like, "Let's see what your strengths are." And I was like, "All right." And I kind of knew my strength. I'm pretty social. I have great social skills. So they gave me that, and then they were like, "Ronny, like, so what's your plan?" And I was like, "Oh, these are my plans." They were like, "Okay, what do you want to do this for?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" They were like, "Yeah, why are you house hacking? Well, what's all this for?" And I was like, "So I can have the time to do whatever I want." And then I'm like, "Oh," like it hit me. Like, okay, so like he's like, exactly. So he's like, now what if we can work something out where we can give you that time freedom now? And I'm like, well, what is that going to look like? They were like, we don't know. But now that you're in that mindset now we can start talking. And that's what happened. So now they're starting to formulate like a plan of what I want my life to look like and using the company as a tool to get me there.
Very cool. And so what do you think your strengths were, what they saw in you that they may have not had at the time and thought you were it was important to bring you on?
Yeah, so I definitely know my weaknesses, and that's their strength. So they are visionaries, especially Michael and Ryan, the guys I work with. They can see. I don't know if you guys ever read the E-Myth, but
yep.
They're especially Ryan. They're dreamers. I'm not necessarily a dreamer. I struggle with seeing like the big picture. But something I am good at is I call it being like an entrepreneur. Like within a business, I'm really good at like taking my portion and making it mine and making it and making it mine. Yeah. So that's what like, I guess I was able to bring to them. Like, I not only am I extroverted, which they're more on the introverted side, I'm very extroverted, so I can kind of handle like more on the sales and property management, which is what I kind of manage now. We were a good mix, so it's kind of worked out. So once we figured out, like, oh, okay, so like they were like, yeah, Ronny, try to, like, I remember they sent me to Woodbridge once. They're like, check if you can get this property. And I was like, what do you mean? They were like, here's a number. Just try to get it at that number. Let's see what you can do. And I failed miserably. But, but it was more like, then the little game hit me. Like, I want to try this again. You guys mind if I try this again? At the time, I'm still working for the DOT. And what I was doing is during my lunch breaks, I would do these like little tasks that they were giving me. Like at the time, I'm just seeing this as a game. And I still see this as a fun, just this game of like Monopoly at scale that I love. But, I'm just during my lunch breaks, I'm like doing it, and like my girl's like, are you even getting paid for this? Like, no, like this is just fun. Like it's like a game, like, calling after work. I'm like getting home and I'm just like, and one day they were like, what if you can do this like for like forever? Like I was like, yeah, I would love it. They were like, all right, so quit. And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, yeah, like just quit. Like, what if you just quit your job and just give this a shot? Like, there's gonna be a lot of sacrifices. Your salary, my salary got cut. I got a quarter of my salary the first year, like that I started like, with the guys. Mm-hmm. And they were like, yeah, but you're gonna have like a lot of time. But now I have that, like, there was, I guess most people won't be able to see the value of that. Like, you're right, you need that aha moment to be like, oh, yeah, time is more important than all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I was able to see that. So I was like, let's do it. They were like, you serious? I was like, yeah. I gave them my notice. With the DOT, I just convinced the DOT to create a brand new position for me. I just did that, and they were about to give me a raise. I felt so bad because she's like, "Well, we created this position because this is what you want." I was like, "I know," and I'm like, "That's such a like jerk move of me." She's like, "We just gave you a raise." I know. Wow. But I just knew, like, I couldn't, like, literally, like, I hired a VA at some point to do my administrative tasks. I can't get into trouble now. I had a VA doing a lot of my administrative tasks for the DOT so then I could focus on real estate. Like, that's how, like, into
what's a VA?
It's a virtual assistant.
Oh, so you hire someone online to do your work?
Yeah, like the admin stuff. So like a lot of like I basically had like a secretary that I was paying out of my pocket to do all the repetitive, annoying emails that I had to send. So I just created a bunch of templates, and then I would just be like, send this template, send template 1 to these people, send template 2.
Oh, damn.
So I just automated as much as I could to just give me as much time as possible and to analyze properties, to now start reading books on like acquisitions. What's that? Like property management. Like what's that? Like what are these things? Like, what's hard money? Like just all these things. And you just go into these wormholes, right? Because it's its own world. So I just needed more time, to do what I enjoyed. So I would just hire out as much as awesome. I could. Yeah.
Wow. That's like that. Like I feel like Phil, you're like in a similar position where you work for like a job where it's like you have like. You can do that. You can like find time during lunch to be able to do that, and after work, like you have to leave at a certain time. You can work on that after work, and and I feel like you did it on purpose.
Yeah, it was a little bit on purpose. The opportunity arose, and I was like, hey, it's steady hours. It's not working crazy overtime and not getting paid for it. So it allowed me to have that time after work to dedicate towards a side hustle.
There it is.
That's awesome. But I wanted to ask you a little bit now, more about like the company that you are a partner of, Freedom Home Buyers.
Yes.
The first question is, since you work for a company, you have 4 partners. What's the difference between your personal investments and the company's investments?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, because that's definitely we're even in the same area. So, and I purposely look for properties in the areas where we as a whole are looking. So I don't have to I don't have to look for double the resources.
Okay.
So the major difference for one is if I'm looking for something on my personal end, I look for things that are retail. I do not like working with contractors. I don't like B2B. That's not my strong suit.
So what is B2B?
B2B is business to business. So communications between business to like another business.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan. I prefer B2C, which is business to customer. So that's why I enjoy acquisitions, right? I'm talking directly to the seller. Because that involves more of like bonding, hitting it all, building rapport. When you're B2B, it's very strictly business. And I feel like I'm just too social and playful to like, it'll be too dry for me. That's not fun for me. So
Yeah.
I prefer talking to just regular people way more. So I look for retail. So I look like my house hack. The house was a flipper, like that flipped it, and I bought it, and I paid full price for it. And that's how I buy all my that's how I look to buy all my properties. I understand that there's a way more risk. I understand that the money I put in, right? Like unlike a burr where you can pull that money out, I understand that I can't pull that money out. I'm fine with it. That's a decision that I've made. My company, we only look for value add opportunities. So we look for problems, whether it's this, like our goal is to get a ranch and add a level to it. Take a bungalow, destroy it, put a brand new seashore house on it. So we're looking for value add opportunities only.
Yeah, so let's go a little bit into what kind of projects you guys get into, because you said you do burr, do you do flips? Like, what is your bread and butter, and what are like new avenues you guys are taking?
Oh yeah, for sure. So our bread and butter, I would say, is 1 to 4 families burring. So just burring being, it's an acronym for buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. So we look for properties. We buy them, they're distressed, we fix it up, we rent them out. Once we bring up the value through sweat equity, we then refinance into a 30-year loan. We pull that money out on the refinance, and we take that same money and we just keep doing it over and over. And the way we build capital is, aside from like raising money, which we do pretty well now, we use hard money as well, private lenders. And through the refinance, like I said, we get to pull the money out and just keep doing it. And we also flip. We flip a lot. We flip a good amount. I think last year we did about 20 projects.
Wow.
22.
And so to make it like efficient, do you have relationship with contractors? Do you have relationship with like different people? Like, is it what people do you need to be in constant work with? It's contractors, maybe mortgage lenders, private lenders. Like, who are people that you deal with on a day-to-day basis for multiple jobs?
Yeah. So I guess if we kind of use it like almost like a map, right? So it starts with marketing, right? So we have marketing. So with marketing, we have a pretty big team of VAs that help us out, mostly from the Philippines, but it's a pretty big team at this point. It's about 12 to 15. Wow. So Michael, one of the partners, he leads the way of that, and his job is to constantly be looking for, like, we send out mailers, direct mailers, what you see a lot of people do. So we're constantly trying to build relationships with like new CRMs. We just used something called REI Fifth. We used to use Podio. Now we use like a combination. So Michael's constantly trying to find that. I'm in the acquisition side, so I'm constantly looking to build relationships with just people. Whether it's wholesalers, whether it's just sellers in general, putting myself out there. Then from acquisitions, it goes into transactions. The relationships there are more like, we use one title company, Clear Skies, and it's just keeping a relationship with them. So when we do have a deal, right, they look at us and they're like, let's take care of our guys first. Yeah. So we maintain that relationship. After that, then it gets to project management, which is the other partner, Jason. He leads the way there, and his job is nonstop looking for contractors. I'm talking about nonstop. Even when we have a good flow of like contractors, he still has to look for more and more because he knows it's inevitable that one of these guys are going to drop. It's just the nature of the beast. Like these guys are. I'm not gonna bash them. I need them. But
no, I mean,
but
construction industry that's what it is, man. Like these guys,
yeah.
once you find a good one, it's a heaven sent. We're in the construction industry as well, and like when you have a good contractor, it's great. But you know, in a second, they're not making money, they leave.
Yeah.
So it's messed up. It's the business.
Yeah. So that's literally like nonstop marketing, nonstop. Anyone who gives me a card, like I give it a J, we'll add them, we'll give them a shot. From project management, it goes either to if it's a flip, it goes, our buddy Vin, he lists all our properties, he takes care of it. If it's property management, it goes back to me. And then I'm constantly looking for relationships with handy guys. Mm-hmm. That's hard too, because a lot of these like handy guys, like right, like they're very casual. They don't understand, like they only work with like mom and pop. So when I hit them with like the efficiency thing, like what time are you going to be there? 9. I'm like, okay. I'll call them the day before. Be like, hey, you're going to be there at 9? Yeah. I'll call them at 8:00. Ronny, I'm like, where are you? Oh, I was like, you said 9. They're like, So it's a constant battle.
How do you go about finding a handyman? I feel like people that don't, like people get scared about that. Like they're scared about buying a rental property and having problems. They're not handy themselves. They need somebody else to do it for them. So how do you go about finding somebody like that?
My best advice, if you're not handy and you don't find enjoyment in doing handy stuff, the best thing you can do is don't learn anything. I'm around real estate literally nonstop, and I don't know how to do anything. I can tell you how much something costs, like, but in terms of me physically doing it, no, at all. I know if I can learn it, I am capable for sure. But all that it's gonna stop you from growing because, like Phil says, right? Like, yeah, you got a call. I'm right here. I can go to Home Depot myself. Problem is, like, that how much is your time worth, right? Like, if you're gonna pay someone $100 to, fix a clog or whatever, like you're like, oh, I can't believe I'm paying this guy $100. Yeah, but like, what's the alternative? You're gonna drive to Home Depot. You're going to get a piece. I'm sure it's the wrong piece. So by the time you get there, you're going to realize it's the wrong piece. So now you're frustrated. Then you got to go back. Then you're on YouTube trying to figure out what's wrong, right? And now your tenant is like, what kind of choppy job did this guy just do? So no one's happy, right? And that $100, like think about what you spent $100 on before, like shenanigans.
Yeah.
Me personally, like I have a daughter now, a 2-year-old. Like I'll take spending time with her. It's going to cost a lot of money, like. If I'm not with her, like it better be because I'm doing something that I love, like just as much as her, right? Like really, my girlfriend's right here. I don't love anything as much as her. something that I love, So I think I go on Facebook, like I'll go on Facebook like looking for a handyman, and I'll see how many times that person's recommended, and at the end of the day, like it's scary, but you just got to give a lot of these guys a shot. Like, it's scary for sure. You can definitely like hedge, ask, like rock stars know rock stars. So like I'll ask somebody, hey, you have anyone you can recommend? And I'll give them a shot. Especially for the easier things. Like I love using plumbers for like clogs. Cause I know it should be very easy for you to get a clog out. If you can't get a clog out, right? Like, and you're charging me $400, like I'm never using you again, but you might have to take that out.
Yeah.
But those learning things are overpaying. That's what protects you in the future. When you have now 30 toilets, right? So some guy can't tell you like 400, but like, come on, bro. Like I've done this before, Yeah. So you just kind of have to go through it. But Facebook, hey, I'm looking for, I'll go to like the Rawway community. It's like 32,000 people there.
Yeah.
So like looking for a plumber, any recommendations. I'll get a bunch. And I'll start calling them, and some of them are not going to pick up. Some of them will. And you just, all right, go, go fix it. How much? 1,000? No way. Or, hey, it's 400. I'm like, oh, sounds fair. Pay them. Next time you do it, some guy charges you 200. Like now you know better, There's no magic button. You just kind of have to just do it.
That's gold. All right, that's a good piece for people that are scared to bite the bullet. But in the same topic, somebody that's first trying to buy their home, they say they're strapped for cash. They just have enough to pay for the down payment. They have some like maybe 3 to 6 months of expenses put to the side. Let's say that there's like a problem, like some plumbing problem or some problem outside, like in the house or something like that costs some money, that they feel like I could save some money if I try doing this myself. Like it's for the first kind of homes. Like you see like the challenge there. I see I feel like that's something that I think about when and I know that it's dumb to think that way, like because I'm not actually taking action. But somebody that hasn't done that yet, I get nervous about those kind of things. And just being real.
Okay, well, play it out. Okay, so let's play that situation out. Let's see what you're afraid of. Okay. So I'll tell you what happened to me. I think it was the first 20 days. So I closed on November 30th. So it was like December. I didn't know that uninsulated pipes, when it's like sub 15, they freeze. I didn't know that. Right? Mm-hmm. I grew up in an apartment my whole life. I've never lived in a house. So I was like, the hell's this? So I call a guy. I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's like, hey, your pipes froze. I was like, okay. Like, what does that mean? You know? He's like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you got to figure out where they froze. Like, what does that mean? And once again, YouTube, you start learning. So I'm with you. There is some of that. Like, you start whatever. No one told me that, as the pipes are like thawing out, whatever, you should keep the things closed if you're not home. I left everything wide open. And the sun was out one day, and we went out food shopping, came back, and it was a 2-family. The first floor was about to get rented, and I opened the door, and I always check the first floor just to see, because it was always vacant. And all I see is in the ceiling, there's water coming down from the ceiling to the floor of the first floor, and from the first floor to the basement. So literally like straight down. Wow. And right, like that's pretty bad, right? But then you start thinking about like, okay, like this is it. Like I know it's scary because like a house, you're like, oh shit, but don't overthink it. Like a house is just a box. Yeah. Like, right, water goes through these pipes, heat goes through these vents or through baseboard. It's just evaporated water, right? Yeah. It's very simple stuff. Like it can get like, don't let it like right.
The way I like to think about it is this is a long-term thing, right? This is an issue. That's an issue for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Once it's done, you have your property back. It's working again. Like a lot of these things are very temporary. Even a month or 2 months, like that's temporary in the grand scheme of your whole life of owning the property, And if you're gonna look at each individual problem and hyperanalyze it, you'll never get started. You have to really look at the long game and see the benefits in the long term, not like, oh, now this problem came up, oh, now this one, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna sell everything. Like you have to have that vision, that long-term vision, to get over those problems.
Yeah, and like another thing too is like the more you put yourself out there, like this is gonna be super uncomfortable. Like the more you put yourself out there, the more susceptible you're gonna be to mistakes. Like it just is what it is. Like if you can't handle that, like if you truly can't handle that, then that's okay. But then definitely, right? Like investing, like that's a chance. No matter how good you are, no matter if it's the perfect property, it doesn't matter. A tree can fall and you're screwed, right? Like things can just happen. Someone can just slip on your property and they can blame it on you and take you to court. Like you can do everything right, right? So you also have to keep that in mind. Like you have to do the most you can with the time you have and the resources you have, and then you just got to jump.
Yeah.
It
takes guts.
And it's supposed, but you know what? You want it to be scary, right? Like that's what keeps you on your toes, right? Like you want it to be a little nerve-wracking. If you were super casual about it, I'll be more concerned. Like, oh shit, like this guy has no idea what's coming his way. But those nerves, those are great because they keep you on point. They make sure that like you got everything down packed to the best of your ability. Yeah, so I love those.
That goes back to how your partner's always looking for other contractors, right? Like you need to be protecting your business, and protecting your business is thinking about these external factors that might cause issues and trying to have a solution before it happens.
Exactly. But it also, right, it's like a balance. And I always like to use the reference of like a rubber band, right? Like it's going to stretch one way, but as long as it doesn't pop, right? Like it's going to stretch different ways. Like right now we're jumping into like the Airbnb realm, right? So like now we're stretching the rubber band, a little more than we want to, because we're entering a realm that we're not too familiar with, right? We do everything we can to try to learn as much as we can about it, but ultimately there's only one way you're going to learn.
Yeah.
By doing.
You got to just do it, right? And like we're learning, and like there was a bunch of mistakes that we did this summer with our first Airbnb. That's all right. Like we take those lessons, and now we have like 3 Airbnbs. So now, we hope that those 3 are going to teach us how to scale it more. And then from those 3, and then you just, as long as the rubber band doesn't break, you just keep stretching it a little bit more, right? Like trying to see how far you can get. And if you have to retrieve, that's fine too,
Yeah. That's so interesting, man. I want to ask you about the Airbnbs, but first I want to ask you, like you spoke about time being the number one reason why you even like made the leap and everything. Like that's the biggest value add for you as far as like making the leap into the real estate lifestyle.
Hands down.
So what did you do with that time? Like you're like what did it add? What was added to your life besides just the like with even with real estate, even with like besides real estate, like your personal life, like what improved? Like what did you see as a result of that?
Yeah. So I guess most people, it's hard for people to value happiness because they feel like they can't, like how with all these things moving around. So like I knew how important happiness was because my dad also retired really early, and my dad wanted to go back to his country. He has a beautiful house that he lives in, like on top of on a mountain town, and he lives like. He has like a farm, like, and he's happy. So I got to see that. So, I did get that little bit of a taste of it. And like more and more, I'm like, it's about like looking, like my hunt is like what makes me happy. So, I'm constantly looking for like what makes me happy and how can I just put myself in a position where I'm only doing that. So like for me personally, like I have a 2-year-old daughter, which I love because like I get to do I can do anything I want that like most parents can't. Like I love that I get to take her to school every day. Like I come from the gym. I wake up like at 5:30 and I can do that, right? I can go to the gym and then I can take my daughter to school and then I get to start my day whenever I want to. Because I'm only doing things that make me happy. So like a regular day for me, I love going to the gym. That makes me happy. I get to start my day like that. I then get to spend time with my daughter and my girlfriend before I take my daughter to daycare. That makes me happy. I get to drop her off. I like the look that I get from other parents because they have no idea what I do for a living. Because sometimes it's 9:00 and I'm walking in Crocs. So I'm like, clearly this guy's he's not going to work. Like, where is he going? And, I even had a parent stop me. Like, I have to ask, like, what do you do? And, that's exciting. I'm not lying. I get it. That's exciting for me. And after that, I get to come to an office, which Phil's seen that, like, it's pretty cool, I think. And I get to hang out with my friends at this point and do what makes me happy. Mm-hmm. So I think it's that, like, it's so crazy how, like, the more time you have, the more you can focus on like happiness. Like that's my number one priority. Like, I don't know how many people can say that,
Yeah.
So that's my biggest takeaway is like my pursuit for happiness is the only thing I truly care about. And then real estate is a tool that I use to give me that.
Wow. That's like goals right there. Like happiness being the number one goal and you're achieving that. It's crazy.
It's funny because I think about that sometimes too. Like when I have a day off from work and I'm like just driving around, I'm like, what do these people do? Like in the middle of the day, it's like 11:30. I'm like, these people are just driving around, like shopping at the gym. Like, what do they do? Like, I want that.
People.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And everyone, the coolest thing is like, for everyone's different. Like I said, Michael, he lives in a van. And
That's so
and
cool.
like his thing is that his girlfriend, his two dogs, they literally, like, I can call them today, but where you at? I'm in Colorado. Mike, where you at? I'm in Utah.
Yeah.
Where you at? I'm in Texas. Like, that's what he likes, that's what he loves. So, and once again, he's using the same tool, but to grant him his happiness. And Ryan, he was in Utah. He's going back next Wednesday. He had such a good time, and he mostly lives in Florida, lives in Jersey. Like, that's his happiness. He likes to stay for a relatively short term, but he likes to stay 3 months, experience the whole what that town offers, and then go somewhere else. Right? So it's cool. Like, 4 different lifestyles, being while still being efficient at what we do, using that as the number one tool to get us what we want. Like, you can't beat that.
Yeah. The culture you guys have and the environment that you guys run in is it's so awesome. Like, anyone would love to be a part of that. It's so cool. And you guys feed off each other, very positive. Like that's fantastic to see.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love it. Like, I feel like I'm cheating every time. Like, I go to work
every day.
Like, sometimes,
you get lost.
Working?
You lose track of what the day is. Like, it's Monday. It's like it's a Monday and a Saturday or a Friday. Like, it all just meshes together if you're having fun.
Yeah, it's all the same.
Yeah.
It's just I'm excited to start the day. There's no burden. There's no, like, the accountability is lands right here with me. Like, there's no one behind my back. Like, we just trust that we're all gonna get, like, everything done. Can't ask for more from me.
Super cool. So just because I said it before, I'm like, I feel like the Airbnbs. We're gonna get to a segment that we get to at the end of the podcast where we ask you 3 questions, one personal, one professional, one random. But before that, I just want to ask you about the Airbnbs. Like real quick, what is that like compared to like a regular real estate investment? And like is it good? Like, is it interesting? Like, do you find it to be more profitable? Like, what is that like?
And what is the work that entails as well?
Yeah, and the
like,
work is
like long-term investments. It's a little bit, it differs.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, I guess just to start in the beginning, right? So in terms of like underwriting and how we look for these deals, we personally, because we're still new, we still look to hedge by burying these properties. We do miss out on a lot of properties because there's certain areas where you can pay a lot of money for these properties retail and still do really well on the Airbnb end. We don't feel comfortable enough because we don't run Airbnb. We're not at the point where our branch of Airbnb is running to that efficiency. Like, we're still trying to figure out what that branch is even going to look like. We don't know what hats need to be worn for that. So in terms of the underwriting and project management, we're still treating this like a BRRRR, like if this was a flip. So we know worst case, there's equity in this deal. So we can sell if we have to. We can refinance if we need to buy time because there is equity. So that's one thing I guess we do that most people that are running an Airbnb business don't necessarily have to do. So that's the first thing. The second thing is Airbnb it's a full-time gig that you're running. It's a job with, like, the person that does Airbnb probably isn't doing anything else.
Yeah.
Because you're running, it's a hotel. You run all the hats that you see in a hotel, they're being worn by maybe 2 people.
Wow. So
that's one thing we learned. Like, it's the most practical things, right? Like, what happens if a drunk person that rented your house can't get in, right? Who are they going to call?
Right.
They're going to call you, and then you're having a conversation with this drunk person. Like, you've got to press, like, the lock. And they're like, I pressed it. And I'm like, FaceTime me, right? And they're FaceTiming you. And I'm like, press the lock. And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, the lock button, there's a little lock button. And you know what you have to do? Like, you're like, oh, shit, am I going to have to drive 2 hours to open this door because I don't have enough resources or can't find someone to do it?
Oh, man.
Because what's the alternative, right? They're going to write a bad review and then no one's going to rent your house.
Wow.
So, like, it's those little, like, super practical things that you start learning are so important in this Airbnb thing. So you got to run like a tight ship, especially if you're doing something like just one day in between rentals. That means you got one day to fix all the repairs, That means you got 1 day to get a cleaning team or person out there to make sure that the unit is clean. That means you have to send someone to now be your eyes, right, your boots on the ground to make sure that the repair person did what they were supposed to, because they know that you're not anywhere nearby, right? So they know they could get away with murder, right? So then, like, you have to have that person on board. And if you don't, then, like, we have a house in Jersey Shore, right? So, like, that's like an hour and a half ride for us, right? Like, who's going to take the ride, you know?
Yeah, right.
Like,
you need like a runner.
So,
you need someone down there who can go look at your what's going on. And even like with cleaners, like to verify that cleaners are doing a good job, you probably want to have someone periodically go there and take inventory and just see how they're doing. Yeah,
Yep.
there's a lot of logistical things that Airbnb there is in Airbnbs, even just like the turnovers, like figuring out like if you have a same day check in and check out, like getting
those are brutal.
Yeah, like
brutal.
making sure that the guests leave on time, because the cleaner needs to get in there, clean, and be ready for the next guests. And sometimes that's not the case. So yeah, it is a 24/7 job. That's for sure.
No one that's a guest at an Airbnb ever thinks about that kind of stuff, man.
No.
It's insane.
No. And it's not their job either. Right?
Of course it isn't.
You're providing a service, like a hotel.
And they're on vacation, so they're more relaxed and like, oh, come on, let me stay like an extra 3 hours. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
But
yeah. And right, and those same people, right, if you're too rude, right, because once again you're hosting them.
Right.
So, right, if you're like, no, like you don't understand, they're like, oh, okay, no problem. Boom, you got a review.
Damn.
Yep. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah,
we're myself and my fiance, we're getting into that, and it's a lot.
Now, like, that was all the bad things. Now the great thing is that we had for example, like the Jersey Shore house only needs to rent for like 7 weeks, and it covers like the whole year, right? So that's the other side of it, right? Like, like you're working heavy, especially if it's seasonal. You're working a lot for a period of time, but then it's good, right? Another cool thing, lifestyle-wise, which is kind of what we base most of our decisions are based on like lifestyle. Like, do we want this? Like, if we have a house in Florida, which we do, and we have a house in the Jersey Shore, like, we also have access to those houses. Yeah. So not only are these houses bringing us but now, right, like me and my family, we spent Christmas in the Seashore house, and I was able to invite literally like my girlfriend's whole family. It was like a bunch of us, and we got to stay there for the weekend, right? Like, and Ryan can stay in Florida, and then we might get something in Utah, right? So like that's the other side too. Like, you can kind of integrate your lifestyle with a business.
Yeah.
And once again, like, where else can you really do that? I don't know. But I just got myself 4 vacation. We're about to buy a property in PA, right? So that's just basically 4 getaways is basically what I'm giving myself and everybody else that works with us. Aside from the money, the cash flow that we make as well.
Yep.
So cool, man.
It's awesome.
Yeah. All right. So I think that we're gonna go to our segment here at the end of the show, where we ask one personal, one professional, and one random question to you. And Phil, if you don't mind taking the first one.
Yeah. So the first personal question: what's a habit or trait you're working on to get better?
I've gotten better at getting with the culture that we're in. It's very straightforward in terms of criticism. So if you're doing something wrong, there is no filter. It's definitely hard to get used to. Before, it would take me maybe like a couple of days to really take in what the other person was telling me, especially when it's like rough, like, yo, that call was terrible. Like, you did a terrible job. Like, fuck, like I did. I've gotten better where I can probably process it in a day. I think the next step for me is processing it, like really putting my ego to the side and processing it as they're giving it to me. So I can so if I have a question, I can ask it right there. I'm not there yet for sure. I just get super, like, my ego gets in the way, and I don't want to hear what that person's saying until I'm home and I'm processing it on my own. But I definitely need to get better at that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that. Like, people tend to get I guess like defensive or emotional about somebody criticizing you, but sometimes they have your best interest at heart. Yeah. So the one professional question is, where do you see yourself professionally in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. So at that point, I think I'm only going to be doing, like, literally only be doing things that I enjoy professionally. As of right now, it'll probably be somewhere in the acquisition side. I love the chase of finding a property, of figuring out someone's problem. So I'm probably going to stay there, and I probably don't want to do anything else.
All right,
Very cool.
Phil, you want to get the last one?
Yeah, last one is a random one. So this one's a little bit of a scenario I'm going to run you through. So we finish the interview, and you step outside of the office, and you find a lottery ticket that ends up winning $10 million. What would you do with it?
I'm cashing it.
Yeah.
What are you using that money for?
The 10 mil?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I'm definitely giving a bunch of it away. I used to work with kids for a long time. That's probably personally in 5 to 10 years what I'll be doing as well, like acquisitions, and probably like just working as an after school counselor. I used to love doing that I did it for like 10 years. Happiest moments. It just doesn't pay anything. So it'll probably have to do with something around that.
Philanthropy, start an organization, and.
No, I don't want to do that, because then it turns into a business, and then I'm gonna lose sight of, like, I don't even want people to know that what I do, like, or what I'm worth. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean that can, a lot of people wouldn't do that, to be honest. So it's a different answer than I expected, but that's a good one. It's a noble thing. But yeah, Ronny, thank you so much for coming on and being a guest. You were great, and I think a lot of people got a lot of knowledge out of that one for whoever listens to this. Very valuable stuff, man. Phil, anything?
No, I appreciate it.
No, again, thank you again, and we'll definitely catch you in the meetups. But before we leave, how can people find out more about you and reach out?
So I'm terrible at social media, and I don't have anything, but my company, Freedom Home Buyers, we have a bunch of stuff that we put up. So that's Freedom Home Buyers, anywhere you can Google it. And I do have a sales channel where I just get to talk sales and acquisitions, and that's Sales with Jay and Ron.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll throw that in the description for any of the so that you guys, whoever's listening, can click on that and check out what you guys are doing. But yeah, man, thank you again, and hopefully we'll have you on soon with additional stuff, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to get on when you get your first deal.
Oh yeah. That's kind of the trajectory that we're going here. I'm starting from nothing. Phil has more experience. We're talking to people that have a ton of experience, and they're learning from it. So as soon as I get my first deal, hopefully soon, we'll have you.
You'll be in the hot seat, Paulino.
Yeah. You guys will ask me all the questions.
Wait, we're gonna interview you.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, man. Thank you again. And you guys can catch us on the Curious Investor Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get podcasts. And thank you very much once again. Take care, everybody. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. If you like the show, please leave us a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that like button, leave us a comment, and subscribe to our channel. You can also follow us on Instagram at CuriousInvestFI. All this helps support our podcast.
Ciao!